you're right, like it does really build intimacy when you're vulnerable and real with the Lord.
We ended up not getting the house.
So we had a fire a month and a half into being married.
When people say, I'll pray for you, are you really praying for them?
You have authority and you have to use it.
Hey guys, welcome back. We are jumping into season 3 of Raw and Real. Whoop, whoop. We are so excited to be back. Today we are going to be just talking about life updates and how to persevere through hardships. But we are going to be starting a new segment on 2-minute hot take. Katie, do you kind of want to explain what a 2-minute hot take is?
Yeah, so 2-minute hot take is going to be 2 minutes to just kind of give a hot take, kind of our opinion. We want to ground it in scripture, but our opinion just kind of on things that maybe the Lord is saying to us, things that we've seen, in life, things that we've seen on social media, just kind of whatever. We want to take 2 minutes and just hit real hard. And so I'm going to start with a 2-minute hot take today. I'm going to start out, and today I'm going to be talking on the ongoing Instagram reel of we listen and we don't judge. This one kind of hit me a little bit hard today when I was scrolling through Instagram, and I came across this, and it's a popular trend right now, and some of them are really funny, but I think one of the things that I kind of sat there and it hit me like a ton of bricks was this thing of, oh, we listen and we don't judge, and here's the list of things that we do that are kind of toxic or not good, and some of them are funny, but some of them are you probably shouldn't be doing that. It's probably why you're making decisions you're making. And so my hot take on this is for Christians who are doing this to self-pity or get empathy or basically have an excuse for sin. Big yikes. Not good. And so my hot take is that as Christians, yes, I don't think you can ultimately judge somebody's salvation, because at the end of the day, you're going to be judged by the Lord. But I am allowed to call out fruit that isn't fruitful. If it's bad fruit, or if you're not bearing fruit at all, I'm allowed to call those things out. I mean, that's where it talks about how iron sharpens iron. If you want to grow, if you want to become more holy and sanctified, you have to allow people around you to call that thing out. And so I believe if you are a Christian, then it is another Christian's job to call out things that are not biblical, that are not holy, and call you to a higher standard. I think it's different for those who are not saved. We can't hold them to that standard because they don't know right from wrong. But as a Christian, whether you're brand new into this or you've been doing this for 20 years, there is a continual growth process and sanctification, holy process to that, where you are called to a higher standard. And so we listen and we don't judge, but the truth is certain things we are allowed to call to a holier standard. And so that is my 2-minute hot take today.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Honestly, with this whole trend going around, it says we don't judge, but we all know we're judging. Yes, you're right. The funny ones are funny, but some of them, I feel this trend is just an excuse where you can straight on confess to people what you don't like about them or what they're doing.
But it almost makes it oh, it's funny because it's a trend right now, so we can just forget that I'm actually telling you everything that I'm doing that's not good, but we play it off, and it's just because it's a friend doesn't make it okay. It's not okay. So certain things are funny with this trend, but other things, keep yourself in check, and allow people to check you if you are a Christian, because if they're a Christian, they have a right to do so. And I know there's a verse that says don't point out the speck in somebody else's eye if they have a log, and I think to that degree, my opinion on it is if I'm the one stuck in lust, then I probably shouldn't be, trying to correct somebody else in lust because I'm struggling with the same thing. But if it's something where I'm on the other side of that, or I don't struggle with that, and I live wholly into that regard, then I have a right to speak life into you, speak correction into you. And so I think it's one thing if you're stuck in the exact same sin, you can't call that out. You need that help yourself. But I think if it's something where you've already surpass that, you've already worked through that with the Lord and with the proper counseling of your pastor, or it's something that you personally haven't struggled with and you see somebody else struggling with, then I think you have a right to speak into that. But yeah, that's my 2-minute hot take.
We could totally turn this into a whole new episode, but to cut it short, just attaching the word trend to it does not make it right. So,
point blank, period.
So let's be careful what we're doing with those trends out there.
Amen. Okay.
Now, I'm really excited for this episode, though, because I feel like this is just, it's so fresh. And just when we were coming up with just topics to talk about for this season, just hardships was like a big one that just hit me. Because and it's not, the funny thing is, it's not even like hardships that I'm going through.
Yeah.
It's family, it's friends, and
100%.
it was more towards the end of the year, going into the new year, and like, New Year's are like, people say like fresh starts, but I feel like just so many things that have been happening, it's just like, okay, like this is not how we wanted the year to start, like why is this happening? But this is one of the first topics I wanted to talk about, because I feel like in the past, when friends or like family would be going through hardships, I'd be like, okay, like I'll pray for you. But this is the one thing, and I could go on a rant about this, but I feel like when people say, I'll pray for you, are you really praying for them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, in the past, I would say, yeah, I'm praying, like, I'll pray for you, and I never did.
I'm guilty of that too.
Yeah.
I mean, how often are you like, oh yeah, I'll pray for you? Like, even now, like, sometimes I catch myself doing that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I actually need to pray about this, like, because prayer works. But it is. I mean, it's true. You're so right about that.
Yeah. So, like, in the past, like, I would say I'm praying for you, and I either forgot or never got a chance to pray for them. And then, like, I would try to do as many things possible myself to help that person, which I'm not saying that's wrong, but I look at it now, and when someone is going through a hardship, when I say that I'm praying for them, what I've really been trying to train myself to do is actually pray then and there. And it doesn't have to be like a super long prayer, just quick, short and sweet, but just coat them in the prayers that you told them you were going to do, you know? But the reason why this whole persevering through hardships is, I feel like it's important to talk about how to handle those hardships, because looking how I handle things or situations that I come across, I handle them a lot differently than I did in the past. Like how I said, if a hardship or something, or I go through a really big challenge, or my family goes through a challenge, the first thing I always did was, okay, what can I do? Like, what can I do to fix this? What can I do to change it? And now I have the mindset of, I can't do anything. You could do all the things physically right to help that person or yourself through that challenge, but like that's not it. Like, you should be looking to the Lord first thing. So and I'm still guilty of doing it sometimes, because I love to be a helping hand. If someone is in trouble, like, I want to do as much as I can to help. But I've also been trying to work on, okay, I'm going to give this to the Lord, and I want to see what He wants to do with it, and I don't want it to be, what can I do? I want it, what can the Lord do with it? So that's what I kind of want to just talk about, is how can we go through these situations, whether it's our own or whether it's friends and family, like, how do we properly, and there's no right way to go through a hardship. There is a wrong way to go through a hardship, but it's how can we go through a hardship seeking the Lord and just keeping your eyes on Him. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean?
I think going into this topic, I think we should give some context a little bit with like backstory of like our personal hardships, because I know sitting here in this room, not all of the people who listen to our podcast necessarily know us personally, but I know I've gone through a lot in the last, like, oh my gosh, 2 months. Me and my husband have. I know you and Alan have. And so, I mean, we've both witnessed that. We've seen a lot of our close friends go through hardship. And so I think just kind of giving some context, because the whole point of this podcast is to be open and transparent. And if we aren't actually explaining like the depth of what we have been facing, then how can we even talk on these things, you know? And so, do you want to go ahead and share first?
Yeah, I feel like we also need to like do a life update. Like, I kind of
that's true.
We're so excited to talk about this topic that we kind of just skipped the whole life update. Yeah, but I feel like, so I'm currently let's just do, if you are new to this podcast, I am a second grade teacher. I feel like the last time I was here, I was newly married a little bit. We were only married for like maybe a year. I don't know. But I was also pregnant during the podcast. Nobody knew though. So
it was a secret.
Yeah, it was a secret. Well, now I have a 1-year-old, which is crazy. Like, it's the most beautiful thing, but it's also like a challenge. But it's a challenge of like where you're constantly growing, you're constantly learning things. And I don't regret. I don't push any challenge aside. Like, I've grown as a woman, as a mother, as a wife, and it's just like, it's an amazing season, and I'm so excited for Katie to step into it one day. But yeah, I have a 1-year-old. I'm currently taking grad classes to get my major. I'm insane because having a 1-year-old is not easy, but I would say one of the challenges that my family is currently facing is my husband and I were trying to house hunt, and house hunting can be a sport, literally. Like, it is so much mentally, emotionally, physically, because like it takes time to look for a house, and we're like not in a rush for it, and like we stepped in like knowing, okay, we're not in a rush, but sometimes I find myself like I am in a rush, and sometimes I just need to take a pause and just breathe and just be grateful for where I'm at, what I have. But yeah, like our tough season is just finding a place because it's so competitive now. And it just can be challenging when you walk through a house, and like every house that we've walked through, every single one, we would go take a walk, but like me personally, I would re-walk through the house by myself, and I would just pray. And I'd be like, Lord, like, give me a sign, just show me that this is the house or this is not the house, because if this is not the house, I don't want it. Yeah. There's been houses that we've looked through where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is everything we need, we want, and even more. And it just didn't sit with me. And I was like, okay. I was like, this really stinks, but this isn't what you have us called to step into. So it's been a lot of challenges, but like it's also been, even though it's been stressful, I've had peace at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I've had peace through this whole season of like looking at houses. Now I have come to a point where I told Alan, I was like, okay, like I'm at peace with this, I'm being patient, but like I need you to step into this role of just doing the research, because I can't do it anymore, because I'm a person that gets really excited about things. But the last house we actually walked through, we actually put an offer in, and we were really hoping and praying. Like, I just really felt like the Lord was telling me, like, this is it. Like, this was, like, it was what we needed and wanted, but it was more. And I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to, like, jump into it, but, like, I'm really just going to sit and pray about it. And I just really felt like the Lord was saying, like, this is it. But I also had the mindset that if it is not it, I thanked the Lord for showing me what he has in store for me, but even more. Yeah. Like, the house had everything, and it had more things that we didn't even ask for that are, like, bonus. But, like, even before the decision, like, happened, before anything after that, I was like, Lord, thank you for giving me a glimpse of what I'm about to step into or what you have for me in the future. And we ended up not getting the house. Somebody outbidded us, or whatever you want to call it, and it was hard. It was definitely challenging, and it was kind of like emotionally for me, I was like, man, like I really thought this was it, but like again, I was like, I'm at peace because I know that, and it makes me even more excited because I know that the Lord has something better for me. And like in the past, that's not how I would like look at things. Like, I wouldn't look at things and be like, Lord, thank you that you took us out of that situation, thank you for showing, like, that's not how I was. Like, I would like honestly just have a negative mindset, like, oh, we're never gonna have a house, like we're gonna be in the house we're in forever, like we're not gonna be able to expand, like, and just those negative thoughts would just rush into my mind. But like now I'm just completely at peace, and like I just have the mindset of like, Lord, you've gotten me this far, and I don't know how it's happened, but you made a way, and I'm just gonna thank you for the things that I've learned, for the things that I've seen. And it's just, now I'm like just praising him and thanking him for the things that I'm learning along the way, even if it's not like what I wanted or what I was expecting. Yeah. It's growth, like just endurance that I'm going through, and it's really exciting. But that's why I thought this was a great topic to talk about, because I feel like some people don't know how to handle those type of situations in that way.
Yeah. I think that just you sharing a little bit about that, like, it speaks to a great volume of, in the midst of going through these trials and these things, and like one of the things like the Lord has been reminding me of in our own trials is, you know, that we are promised these trials. We are promised hard times. We are promised to go through situations we don't understand, because on this side of heaven, we do live in a broken and fallen world. And I think what you're saying there goes to speak a great volume to the fact that in the midst of those, there's still a place where you can walk in obedience, and you can walk in trust and faith of what he's going to do in the midst of the situation. And so one of the things greatly the Lord has been speaking to me through the midst of trials and tribulations is there's a promise, you know, that we are going to go through these hardships. We're going to go through trials. We're going to go through tribulations. It's not this gospel of you get to know Jesus and then all of a sudden life is just perfect. You never go through anything hard again. The thing about knowing Jesus is in the midst of all those hardships, you have somebody to rely on. You have someone to cling to. And because of the promise of trials and tribulations, there's a better promise. It says in the Bible that his blood speaks a better word. And so even though there's a promise we're going to go through those hardships, there's a greater promise that his blood is going to cover those hardships, and that his blood is actually going to work through those hardships. And so just a little bit of a life update on my end. So last time we did the podcast, I don't even know that I was engaged, to be honest with you. I might have just got engaged towards the end of it, but I am now married. So if you've looked on the new Raw and Real stuff, logos and everything, you'll notice my name is no longer Katie Hoover, but it is Katie Sterner.
Ooh, it's got a ring to it.
So we have a big life update there, and that is kind of my life update. But we have been married on the 2nd of February. We've been married for 3 months. So we are freshly married, a little over 3 months.
It's going quick, though.
It is. Like, it's going so quick.
I feel like you just got married.
I know. Well, I've been waiting 5 years. Like, in prayer and patience, and we can do a whole nother episode on this, for my future spouse. And we finally got, like, I met him right before of like 5 years of singleness, and just before getting married, pretty much 6 years, 6.5. And so it's just crazy to think, like, I had this huge long wait, and I've just had, like, prayed and believed for my future husband, and now I'm here, now I'm married, and it's just like, oh my gosh, the wedding day went so quick. So fast. And I'm just like, it kind of is sad. It's bittersweet, because I'm like, I'm so thankful that I'm married, but I'm like, man, I wish I could just like relive the day like once more. But it goes so quick. So small like plug for any of the brides out there, like, take in your day, enjoy it, because it goes so quick. But just life update, I'm now married, so I'm now Katie Sterner. But I think just like in the 3 months that me and my husband have been married, life has been a whirlwind for us. So let me just back up to our rehearsal day. So day of the rehearsal, my lovely husband, somehow threw out his rib, popped it out of place. So we had to go to an emergency chiropractor. He like came in on his day off to pop his rib back in place. And then that same day, our getaway car, which was going to be his 66, broke down. So we were literally getting ready. He was driving over to my house to pick me up to head to rehearsal dinner, and the truck broke down. So not only did he pop his rib out of place and could barely breathe, when I tell you he was wheezing so bad. But then the truck broke down. 2 weeks before our wedding, I got in a fender bender car accident. So it wasn't anything super major. Nobody was hurt. Everybody was fine. But it was just kind of like an annoyance. I'm like, really? Like, I get married in 2 weeks. This is the last thing I need to be dealing with, talking to insurance and everything like that. So that was 2 weeks before. So then rehearsal dinner happened. All of that happened. Day of our wedding was great. It was beautiful. Honeymoon was great. Like, absolutely amazing. We get back from the honeymoon. The honeymoon was literally the honeymoon. The Lord blessed us so much, and I could like tell you all about that in another podcast, but the Lord immensely blessed our honeymoon. We just saw so many things the Lord worked together. Such a testimony. And even on our wedding day. But going in to coming home, life started to hit us full force. It did not even give us a moment to breathe, because we had, I want to say 2 weeks after we got married, my car then broke down. Landon's truck, the one he normally drives, so his actual truck, he has a Chevy, broke down. And that wasn't his 66, that was like his current one, his everyday truck, broke down. And that was 2 weeks after being married. A month and a half after being married, so my husband, before we got married, had rental properties, and he rents like a commercial building. You know this, yeah. But he rents a commercial building. It was like a garage, and by accident, it caught fire. So we had a fire a month and a half into being married. We were up until like 2 a.m. that morning. It was a long night. We both had so much peace through all of it. So again, just such a testimony in the midst of it. But yeah, it was a long night. About a week and a half later, I kept getting 3 nights in a row just these crazy night terrors, like, and it literally, like, I am a dreamer, so I dream a lot, but these are ones where it's like, you know, you have those dreams and you're kind of like, oh, that doesn't mean anything. These were ones where I was like, it literally felt like the Lord was like giving me warnings for things, and like they very, very, very in my face. Like I woke up in the middle of the night just like praying, like waking up at 3 a.m. every single night for 3 nights, like just consistent, just praying, and the Lord was speaking a lot to me in those 3 days. But just having these like crazy dreams, like big like scary dreams, but it felt like warnings that the Lord was giving me direction in the midst of that. And then that was right before New Year's. I was having some pain. So I was having some pain in my body around, I want to say like New Year's Eve is when I started feeling it. And as the week to weekend went on, it became more and more immense. I went to urgent care that Friday after I got off work. I was supposed to work the next Saturday. They thought it was my appendix, so I got rushed to the emergency room. They did CTs, blood work, all this stuff. They ended up finding out I had a cyst. And so I was dealing with that. At the time of me finding out I had a cyst, we're sitting in the hospital, and my husband was severely sick with a cold. So we come home, he's sick with a cold. I end up getting a cold, picking up what he has. Then I got a stomach bug on top of that. Then a week later, I got over that stomach bug. A week later, I still had this cold, and it was just really, really bad. I got another stomach bug. So I got hit with all of that. And then I did forget to mention, but 3 days after we had that fire in December, I got a stomach bug then. I had never in my life been more sick or gone through as many things as I had within that time frame until then. It was just wild, like a wild few months. Thankfully, I would say probably we're still working through some of the health stuff, but we're believing for full healing. But I would say like since mid-January, we haven't had anything too crazy and extreme. But I definitely sat there some days and I'm like, okay, Lord, what is happening? What is going on? What is happening? And I know so many of our friends have kind of been in the position of like, we're like, what is happening? Like we see our friends going through one thing after another, and I'm just like, what is happening? We took food to our one friend. They were in the hospital with their daughter a few weeks back, and we took food to them, and they were just telling us about all the stuff they're going through, and he's like, I can't make this stuff up. And I'm just like, I feel like that's been life. Like I feel like that's been life recently. Like I'm just like, you can't make it up. Like it's all happening at once. And so I love this topic because I know for both of us, we've been in the thick of it recently. I know our friends have been in the thick of it recently, and the Lord has been teaching me honestly a lot through it, a lot of obedience, a lot of like perspective, and even just like it's been a refining and pruning process as well, because there's definitely moments when they told me it was my appendix, I hate surgery. I've gotten surgery before, so if anybody is new here, and I don't even know that I've stated this on the podcast, but I had a minor heart surgery back in 2022. It wasn't open heart, so it wasn't as dire as that, but it was still a heart surgery, and I hated that. And I unfortunately had to be awake for that one, so it was not fun. But I just hate surgery. I hate the idea of being under. I hate the lack of control, to be completely honest. And when I came to that realization, it kind of gave me an awakening of the fact that I like to control that. But I went into full panic mode when they told me that it was possibly my appendix, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. I don't want this. I don't want to do surgery. And I just began to break down, and I was in tears. And I remember, reaching out to friends and reaching out to my family, and I'm just like, you have to pray for me. I don't want to go through this. I don't want to do this. And I was desperate for prayer. One, because I wanted healing and I was in pain. But two, there was a lot of fear running through me at that time. Mm-hmm. And so we get to the hospital and we get checked in and everything. And finally, I would say probably 30 minutes when we were finally in there, I calm down and the Lord hits me, and I'm just like, I have this thought come to my mind, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot completely who I was. I know who I am. I know the Lord is good. I know He's faithful. I know He's a healer. And although it's okay to feel those things, there also is a place where you have to remind yourself who the Lord is, who you are in Christ, and not allow that to waver what you're feeling, not allow the circumstances to control where you're at. And so physically I was scared and I was fearful, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get surgery. I don't want to go through this. But there was a place where the Lord had to remind me, okay, in the midst of fear, you're called to have a sound mind. You're not called to have a mind of fear. You're called to have a mind that's focused on me. And, I just remember thinking, quoting verse back and being like, this is who I'm supposed to be. This is who I'm called to be. This is who the Lord is. He's my protector. He's my healer. He's my provider. He's going to bring whatever I need in this moment. And it says that we can boldly approach His throne of grace in our time of need. And so I just was like, okay, you know what? There is fear here, and there's fear that is understandably so, but the enemy's trying to close in on that, and I need to remember who I am, remember who Christ is, and lean into that, because that's the most important thing I can do in this moment. And so the Lord has been teaching me so much through this process, a lot of obedience, a lot of just stewarding my yes, even in the midst of the unknown. So just a lot of things that I feel like I've been learning in the season with this.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much frustration I have had with not even my circumstances. It's family, friends,
oh yeah.
My mom, she had a stroke, and she's been having these episodes since the stroke where she'll just pass out. And she actually had one recently. Not many people know about it, but when I was at work, and I remember sitting in my chair, and I just got the text from my dad saying hey, I just want to let you know, keep you updated, your mom had another episode. She was actually on the phone with my dad, and he heard her collapse. And thankfully, thank God, my sister was there to help her. But just the rush of frustration, and right away, I remember sitting in my chair and just verbally saying, devil, you are a liar. You are not winning this battle. And I was just so frustrated. And with your situation with you and Landon, you both being freshly married, and just the way Satan was attacking you, I was so frustrated for you. And some people would say why are you so emotional about it, or why do you have so much frustration? Because when it's your family in Christ, whatever they are going through, you should be feeling for them too. And it's how we talked about that inner circle a while back in those episodes. When it's absolutely, when it's someone outside of my circle, not as close, I still get upset, because anything that I see that Satan trying to destroy, I just get so frustrated about it. But when it's someone in my inner circle, I get heated. And I'm just like, okay, like, this devil needs to be smashed. He needs to be kicked in the teeth. Like, I'm going to do everything that is going to tick him off.
You and me are the same. I literally... we have prayed every single night going through all this, and I love my husband, and he's just been praying, and he's like, God, we just thank you for healing. We thank you for health. We thank you for bringing us through the situation and provision. And I'm just like, every night I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. But I remember like waking up one morning and I was just ticked. I'm just like, I'm done. I'm done with the games of the enemy. I'm done with feeling like crap. I'm done with all like the spiritual warfare. Like, I'm just done. And I remember I like yelled at him and I was like, you're going to sit down. I said, we're going to grab hands. And I said, we're going to pray. And I just remember saying, Satan, you can take all this and you can take it back to the pit of hell, because I'm done. I'm over it and I'm not playing with it anymore. Like, and sometimes like, you know, it makes you think, like, I'm just kind of like, okay, why didn't I do this sooner? But I'm just like, sometimes you just have to learn to, like, you have authority and you have to use it. Like, you have authority, it says, to tread on serpents. And, like, so whatever hell brings against you, you can command it back to the pit of hell, because it doesn't have a hold on you. The blood covers you and you are covered by Christ. But, like, I mean, it's just been a growing season in all of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you really want to know how to tick the devil off, just reminding him, and I'm not even kidding you that I do this during hardships, I literally remind him that, like, we win in the end. Like, you literally lose. And, like, that's how I handle those hardships and those situations. Like, when I hear about my mom, or I've heard about you, or, like, our friends and what they're going through, like, I think, like, okay, it's hard right now, but we end up winning in the end.
Well, and too, like, a lot of times, like, when the enemy is coming against you with, like, spiritual warfare, whether it's sickness, financial issues, whether it's family situations, whatever it is that the enemy is using to try and distract you or steal your attention or make you forget who you are, who Christ is, a lot of times on the other side of that, breakthrough and freedom, like when you walk through the other side of that, the Lord has so much. And the reason the enemy is pushing back is because he knows, like, he knows what's happening. And the thing is, like, he does lose. Like, I'm sorry, you get thrown into a lake of fire. Like, don't know what to tell you, buddy. You already screwed yourself over. So now you're coming in, you're trying to mess with my life, and I'm not going to stand for it. Like, just because you're going down doesn't mean I got to go with you. And I'm not going to allow you to. And so it's just, like, in that midst of that, you kind of have to, like, you know, armor up with the word of God, and you got to go to war, because, like, he's going to do whatever it takes to bring you down with him. And the thing is, we're saved by grace, so we're not going to go down with him. But, like, at the same time, like, he's going to try and emotionally drag you down, physically drag you down, financially wear you down. Like, whatever it takes to take your eyes off of him, he's going to try and throw every storm at you. And so in the midst of that, you have to keep your eyes on Jesus, because you have to remember that you win and that you're covered by the blood, and those things don't have authority over you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. Like, if you are going through, like, a hardship and through a really tough season, like, just know that Satan's doing it because he sees what is to come. If the hardship and the season that you're going through is so tough, it's because he sees that the season that you're about to step into is so great, and he doesn't want that for us. He wants the exact opposite. So he's going to throw everything he can at you to get you to think those thoughts, like, ugh, like, I give up, and just those negative thoughts, and he'll do anything to get you to stop, because he wants to stop whatever's coming, whatever the Lord has set for you. And he's like, oh, like, I see what's about to come. I don't like this. I'm going to do this, this, and this to get you to either change course and don't go through that season that the Lord wants you to step, like, for you to step in through. But, like, that's the thing with you and Landon. You just becoming one. Like, I can tell you that Satan was not happy when that happened, because you two are a force to be reckoned with. Like, you two together, the Lord has so many things set at your feet, like, that you are going to just walk through, and, like, Satan doesn't like that. So he's like, when you guys got married, he went full force. He was like, I'm going to throw this at you, and you guys are going to break. And I have to say, and I haven't even said this to you off of the podcast, I'm so proud of how you two went through that together. Like, it wasn't just Landon did this or you did this. Like, you two came together and you handled the situation so great, because you both went together and you looked to the Lord.
Yeah. I think, like, going back, I think the first, like, we were already kind of going through things. We were already going through, you know, the car situations and all that. But all that was, like, pretty minor to us. It was like, okay, this is stuff that, like, it's fine. We'll figure it out, whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know anyone who has gone through a fire in their first year of marriage. Yeah. And thank God, no one was hurt. And I didn't mention that earlier, but I should have. No one was injured. Nobody was hurt. Everybody was safe. The building is pretty well donezo, but everybody was safe. But in the midst of that, you know, it was one of those weird switches too, because we had just gotten married. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Landon's garage. And literally Tyler texted and was like, just remember, like, that's your guys's. You're married. You're one now. This is your garage. Yeah. And so, like, it took me a second to be like, oh gosh, this is us. Like, this is not just his, this is mine. And, like, even though it didn't feel like mine, because, you know, he's the one who runs all of the business side stuff, it was ours, and the decisions we've been making through this process have been, like, together. But I remember, like, I was with him every single step of that night, and we came up here because we were down there, like I said, till probably 2 a.m, and we walked away because we needed to go to the bathroom, and we'd just been down there all night. Like, we were literally about ready to go to bed when we heard the sirens pulling up, because
so you didn't even know it was on fire? Like, no, you figured it out through the fire?
So what happened is, it was like 9 o'clock at night, and we heard sirens, and he was like, oh, somebody's getting, like, pulled over. And I, like, must have heard other sirens, because I was like, that doesn't sound like a cop car. Right. And sure enough, there was a cop car, and right behind that came a fire truck. And we were, like, looking outside, and he was like, he saw the lights reflecting up, because we have an apartment that sits on top, and so he saw the lights, and he was like, oh, they must have pulled him over in the alley. And I, like, the sound of it just didn't sit right with me. I was like, that doesn't sound right. So I was thinking maybe there's something going on down the street or whatever. We see the lights reflecting off, and we look out back, and we just see, like, it didn't look as bad as it was at first. It looked like a little spark, and we saw some smoke. And Landon's like, oh my gosh, he caught something on fire. Like, and there was a renter, and all this was accidental. It's a long story, but there was an accident. Something caught fire, and he's like, oh my gosh, there's something on fire. And by the time we got our shoes and jacket on, we looked back out. It was probably 5 seconds, kid you not, and the entire thing was up in flames. Wow. And, like, it was just kind of crazy. So in the midst of that, we stayed with each other the entire night. You know, it was more he had to talk to everybody. And we came upstairs just to use the bathroom. And I think, honestly, it was good, because we just needed a moment to, like, be together and kind of, like, decompress for a moment. And neither of us were upset or frustrated. We were kind of just like, oh my gosh, like, this is literally happening right now. Like, we were kind of both in, like, a little bit of shock. And it was kind of, like, disheartening, but neither of us were, like, angry. Neither of us were just, like, ticked off. Nobody was mad. We came upstairs, and before, like, we went back down, I just remember, like, we hugged each other and we prayed, and I remember, like, we looked at each other, and we were like, at that point, we're 6 days away from Christmas, okay? So we're 6 days before Christmas, literally, first Christmas together, married. We're 6 days away, and I remember looking at each other, and I just said, you know, we were already planning to give to a family in need. We already had everything, like, ready, like, to go. Like, I had an idea of what we were going to get. I didn't buy anything yet, but I had, like, an idea. And I just remembered, like, looking at him, and I said, the Lord has asked us to do these things. And I said, we don't know the financial outcome of this, so we have no clue. I mean, we're still 2 months out, and we probably won't even get an estimate, I think, till next week is currently the plan. So we had no clue going into that. Like, we didn't know off the top of his head how much was going to be covered. Insurance, we didn't know, because, like, you plan and you prepare for these things, but in the midst of that, I mean, who's paying attention to how much coverage they actually have, you know? Right. So didn't know how much coverage, didn't know what the cost was going to look like, didn't know if we were going to have to pay it out of the business or the personal pocket. Like, no, we didn't know anything. We didn't know what was salvageable, what had to be destroyed, nothing. So you're going into the situation with all these unknowns, and I just remember looking at him, and I said, the Lord asked us to do this, and I said, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it costs, we still have to do this. Like, we still have to honor the Lord and be obedient. And, like, it was kind of that thing of, like, okay, Lord, no matter what you tell us to do, like, if it is a financial seems like a financial burden on us, we're still going to do it in obedience to you, because at the end of the day, like, you're a provider, you're a caretaker. And, you know, I just kept reminding myself that, like, you know, I wasn't planning to come out of this situation as a millionaire with millions of dollars, but I am planning to come out of this situation and the Lord provide for every single dollar of it.
Right.
You know, I'm expecting him to give us favor in this situation, because he does have good plans for us to prosper, and the enemy tried to come in and steal those plans away, but he has good plans for us to prosper. And I do believe that in these situations, as a provider, he does provide financially in the midst of these situations. And so, you know, will it look like we get the full amount? I'm going to believe so, until we get that final number. But even if it's not, I'm believing that the Lord is going to give us what we need to cover that, what we need to, you know, do what we have to do. And, you know, it's still like one of those things where we don't even know what we're going to be doing yet, so I can't even tell you what we're going to be doing. But I do believe that the Lord is going to provide. He's going to take care of those things. And that was one of the things of, in the midst of the situation, we had to learn to be obedient and still steward what we were asked to do. We had to learn how to still bless the people we were asked to bless before the fire. I mean, we're 6 days before Christmas. We're still buying presents. We're still, and, you know, presents, of course, I think people would have understood a sacrifice there. But in the midst of, like, the family we're going to bless, I was like, we still have to do this. Like, this is something we felt like the Lord was asking us to do. We're going to do it. And so I think that's just been a learning experience of obedience in the midst of this. Yeah,
no, I love that. I love how after that whole shocking situation with the fire, that you both came together as one and you prayed about it. And I'm all for praying. I'm not saying don't pray. But when I was thinking about this podcast last night, something that came to me was, when you come through a situation or you're going through a storm, what the Lord just brought to me was, you need to call out that mountain. So praying about it, yes, you absolutely pray for it. The Lord knows your desires. He knows what's on your heart. He knows what you want. But you need to call that mountain and command it to move. And, like, for example, like, if you're struggling financially and you have bills, like, piling up, you need to call that mountain out and say, bills, you're gonna disappear. I don't know how that's gonna look, but you're gonna be gone. And that stress and that pressure is just going to be lifted off. And I think by doing that, it just changes the whole situation. It changes your mindset. It changes the atmosphere. But if you call that mountain and you command it to move in Jesus' name, it will be done.
Well, and I think too, like, going along with that, like, I think a lot of people get in the mindset, if you, like, call out those mountains, especially financially, there's a lot of, like, that tension in the Christian realm of, like, financially, like, if you call that out, like, oh, you can't do that. Like, no, he's a provider. Like, I'm not saying, like, he's not a genie where you're going to get millions of dollars and be blessed and have all these things. But what I am saying is, he's a provider. And at the end of the day, it might not be immediate. It might look like your bill is due tomorrow and the Lord shows up at midnight. Like, I don't know how that looks. All I know is the Lord is a provider. He's good, and he takes care of his kids. And so, you know, it's not wrong to call those mountains out. It's not wrong to be like, God, this is my need. Like, it says in Hebrews, like, you can boldly approach the throne of grace in your time of need. What else would that throne be for, if not to approach in the time of need, you know, for giving adoration and honor, but also coming to him and saying, God, I need help with this. I don't know how I'm going to get through it. But, like, your word says you're a provider. Your word says you're going to take care of me. And so I'm going to believe that somehow, some way in the midst of the situation, you're going to move this mountain. This mountain has to go. Like, I need it to go, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to pay for my bills. I'm going to be late. You know, then it's going to affect this in my life. You're like, it's okay to call those things out and believe that the Lord can take care of them, and believe in faith that they're going to move, and also command things that aren't of the Lord to go back to the pit of hell where they came from, because they're not of him. They should have no hold on you.
And you're definitely right that some people may look at it as, like, a selfish thing, like, to when you're calling those mountains out, when you're asking the Lord for these things. And when I'm saying, like, calling them out and asking. I'm not saying like expecting it right away. Like when you call those things out and you're asking the Lord, it's like a relationship. Like with your husband, if you need something, you're going to ask him and he's going to provide. That's just what a relationship is. So being comfortable with asking the Lord what you need and what you want, the Lord doesn't look at it as like, oh, you're being selfish. I truly believe that it builds intimacy. Like the Lord knows your desires, but he doesn't want to assume. Like in a relationship, you don't want to assume like, oh, like I know they're going to need this or this. I don't know if this makes sense, but it's just coming to me now. But like the Lord like knows what you want, but he doesn't want to just assume. He wants you to ask for it. Like he wants you to have that relationship where you are just open with him and that you are just comfortable with asking for help, asking for knowledge, for wisdom, and the Lord's not upset about that. I don't look at that as a selfish thing or that you being like needy or whatever. I think that's just a way of you just building intimacy.
It's learning to rely on the Lord. I mean, because like here's the thing, like yes, like it says that the Lord knows what you need before you even know. Okay? Right. So like, does he obviously know what you need even before you tell him? 100%. But why would it tell us to boldly approach his throne in our time of need if he didn't want you to come to him and make it known?
Right.
He doesn't like. That's the thing with like free will is like you can have all these like needs of like you're struggling with this, and this, and like he already knows that, but he also wants you to confide in him. He wants you to believe that he's going to be bigger than those problems. He wants you to come to him with faith and trust that he's going to take care of it for you. Like he wants to talk with you. He wants to work through those things with you. Like he wants to give you wisdom and insight on how to navigate those situations. And so I think you're right. Like it does really build intimacy when you're vulnerable and real with the Lord and like, this is what I'm going through. And there's times where I've definitely gone to the Lord and I'm like, I just don't understand. I'm kind of angry. And like, I don't think I've ever gone into a situation where I'm necessarily angry at the Lord, but I've definitely gone into situations where I'm like, I'm really ticked by the situation. I don't know what to do. Like I'm like, and I've openly gone to the Lord and been like, I'm ticked at this person and I don't know what to do and I know that I need to forgive and love, but like I'm really struggling. And it's okay because you're human to like voice those things to the Lord and do it properly. But guess what? He's gonna move you. He's not gonna keep you there. Like he's gonna change you and transform you and give you the tools and insight that you need to be able to move forward.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah. Good. So I don't know. I just feel like there's been a lot of craziness. I know it's not just us. I know like the world has looked a little crazy. You know, I think too, there's always a lot of political craziness, but I think also with the recent change in leadership, there's even more of political craziness and opinions because the change is so fresh right now. So many changes are happening. And so I think in the midst of that, there's just a lot of things that are weighing on a lot of people. And so you're not alone, first and foremost. You're not alone. But at the end of the day, there is a proper way. Like Lakin said, there's not necessarily a right way in the sense of like you have to do it this point, but there is a wrong way. And that looks like doing it without the Lord. That looks like not going to wise counsel. Yeah, it looks like not confiding in people who are going to point you in his direction, in his way. And so we've been so amazingly blessed, and I know you can say the same, to have such support from people we love. I mean, we had so many people reaching out to us, texting us after the fire. We have so many people, like when I was sick, we had so many friends bringing us food, and just praying over us and constantly checking in. And so the outpouring of love that you get in the midst of situations with good godly community is just amazing. And so I'm so thankful for that. But I mean, there is like, it has been, from our own words, it has been a trying and hard season. And so, you know, in the midst of that, you just have to keep your eyes on the Lord and ask him, boldly approach his throne and ask him and tell him what you need. But also to ask him what you can learn in this season, what you can grow in, because those seasons will teach you a lot. Like I said, I've learned obedience. I've learned, you know, when you go through the situations, you get pressed and you see what comes out. And there's times where you have to remind yourself who you are and who you're called to be and not let circumstances weigh on you. And so definitely take it as a learning opportunity too, of like, Lord, what are you teaching me in this season?
Yeah, no, that's so good. And if there's ever a time where you're going through a hard season, and like you said, if you're getting pressed and something that comes out is not the way it should, don't push back. That's the last thing you want to do. Don't push the Lord away. That is when you really want to bring him in. That is where you, again, that intimate relationship where you're like, Lord, I messed up. That's not how I was supposed to respond in that situation. Show me and help me how I can fix this or what I can do. And yes, you can do things on your own. You can do as many things as you want physically to help change those problems, but that is going to be a temporary fix. When you look to the Lord and you are just pressing in on him and just, okay, Lord, this is the situation I'm in. I'm giving it all to you. You have full control. That is when it's going to be a permanent change to those hard situations.
100%. And situations can also be a place, like, not just to switch the situation, but to switch you, to transform you. And so going in with it with that perspective is honestly going to shift the way you handle it a lot of times. So I mean, I enjoyed this conversation. I think it's one that we need. We are both 25, so our trials and things we're facing are not done. Far from it. And so I'm sure we'll be back on here showing more of those things. But we just wanted to start off with a life update and also be honest of like what we're going through, because with everything we're going through, it is a little bit of a sacrifice to make this happen. But we are doing season 3. It is happening. We are so excited to be back. I can't believe that we are on season 3. This is wild. We have a new logo. We have some fun pictures coming your way. I'm so excited for the season. And we're going to get ready for season 4 next fall. So it is happening. Raw and Real is happening. And hopefully, on this journey, we will have so many other exciting things in store. But I am just thrilled that we are back and better than ever. So,
yeah. I know Katie and I are already talking about so many ideas. We're going to be looking into like Q&As. We want to hear from you guys, not just us coming up with topics. So we're definitely on social media going to be asking you what you want to hear. But I'm really excited to see what's to come.
Yeah. Well, guys, we hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you for joining us on the first episode of season 3 of Raw and Real. We will be back every other Tuesday. So we are going to be the first and third Tuesday every single month for the season. And so we're so excited. I think we're running through June, I believe it is. So we'll have episodes running through June for season 3, and then we'll kick off season 4 at a later date, and we'll let you know that later. But we're so excited to be back and so thrilled to have you here. So make sure you follow us on Instagram and our Facebook page, as well as we do have a YouTube. We're on Spotify and Apple if you want to keep up. And like I said, we're posting every other Tuesday. So stay in touch with us. Follow us on our personal accounts so we can also keep in touch with you there. But we are so excited. So we love you guys and have a wonderful week.
See you guys. Love you.